Well, what's going on out there in YouTube land? C1122 Wingnut Radio out here for Anarchy Television again. Now, I'm not going to be out here for very long. I've only got about 55% on my battery right now. And I just thought I'd sit out here for a little while and and talk about what's going on my mind. Um, I know a lot of people out there um, that have a lot of beliefs and hope for things that are happening right now, for it to be going on for the better. Um, and I just hope people. I actually I don't want people to get disappointed. I don't want to get people all their hopes and beliefs and dreams and all that stuff to be crushed by reality. This is one of the reasons why I speak the way I speak sometimes, is because I see things a way that some people don't, and um, a lot of people don't. They hold on to beliefs. They hold on to hope. Me personally, like for instance, like things to go get better and stuff like that into the future. Hey, Bonnie, and like this is one of the things I was holding my tongue on earlier. Bonnie was um I understand people have these types of feelings and stuff like that, and and also if you want to get up and talk about it, also that's fine. I'll put the link in if you want. But I I in some ways I don't want to to hurt people's feelings and get on the and make people mad because I'm pushing it. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to push their beliefs because it. When you start when you start talking the way I do sometimes, that pushes against people's beliefs and what they hope and all this other stuff. It 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 really um, it really works on people. No worry, Bonnie. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Bonnie. You know, um, and and uh, I just don't want people uh, to 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 get to a point where they've had these beliefs and this hope and this faith and stuff like that on certain aspects, and then it all comes crashing down on them all at one time, and and that to me can be more detrimental, because then everything they believed, everything that they hoped for was a lie, uh, would really do some damage psychologically to a lot of people. And I'm, you know, that's the reason why in some ways, I throw my 2 cents worth in there. It's basically just a little seed of doubt. You know what I mean? Because I mean, and to me, I think that's, doubt and questioning things, instead of having this blind belief, faith, and all that stuff, yeah, is good because I mean, you can grow, in my opinion. And so, I mean, that's what bothers me about people I think that are good people. I think there are good people out there that mean well and all this other stuff and all that stuff, but they're being, um, their beliefs, their faith, and their hopes and stuff like that cloud um, their vision of the objective truth out there, of reality. And hell, even that could be questions right there. It's like, what is reality? And I guess it depends on what your definition of reality and all that other shit. And that's what drives me nuts because, you know, like for instance, like we were talking about earlier, Bonnie. All right, let's say, you know, you got all this belief and faith and hope and Trump and all this other shit and all this other stuff, and things are going to get better, and then they just in 4 years it just all comes crashing down. That nothing has gotten any better. It's actually gotten worse, and I fear that that type of psychological impact to people when they come to the realization that what they were um, what they were thinking about, or what they were believing and all this other stuff was basically just a fantasy world. It's your idea of what things are instead of um, what practically it is. Um, and that drives me nuts, man, because I mean it does frustrate me also. And I'm not blind to it. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been observing. Actually, one of my hobbies is observing people, and because I look at people as like a mirror to myself, because the more I learn about people, the more I can learn about myself, because I see myself in everyone else. And I see myself, that the things that I don't like in myself, I see that in other people. Things that I do like in people, I see that as myself also. You know, so I see it like it's more like the ability to reflect. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I'm not saying that I'm a saint, and I'm not saying any of that stuff. I know I'm flawed. I mean, there are things in my life that I can definitely, I should be doing better. Um, let's see, that's why I brought up what I see personally around me. I agree, and that's the thing that kind of bothers me. And there are things that, even on even some things that, I mean, there are a lot of things that I agree with you on, Bonnie, but there are also other things that I also see that I don't agree with. Because my perspective of things, um, and there are some things that you're talking about also, that it would take almost all of us, if not a majority of us, in America, to really get things going on that trajectory. Um, but it's bigger than just us in America. It's a worldwide thing, and this has been in the works and in the plans, and the infrastructure has been being put in all our lives, even before we were born. It's been happening this way for generations. They are playing the long game. Um, I agree, and that's the thing. It's like, I'm not. I know I can't always be agreeable. You know what I mean? I totally get it. You know what I mean? Because, like I said, there are some of my perspectives that is not necessarily popular. Um, and that's the thing, though. It's like, there's a lot of stuff that has become popular that has been put in place by the people that are trying to tear us down. Um, and that's unfortunately that's I mean, because I look at young people that are advocating for socialism because they think that is the best thing since sliced bread, and they have no freaking clue what socialism and communism is. They've never lived through it. They have no clue whatsoever. They don't know history. Hell, they don't even know their own history, much less the history of, like, socialism and communism and all this other stuff. So they're being fed this stuff, and what's up, Sean? I know, and I do, and I am kind of stubborn on some aspects. I get it, and I understand that. I am. That's just my nature. Because like I said, I mean, I've been observing this stuff for a long time, and I've been watching it erode around us as we go. Huckleberry, what's going on? And like I said, it's eroding away slowly. Like I said, it's kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts scenario, because they know if they did a cold turkey scenario on us, that would wake so many people up, because they realize they have nothing left to lose, and that's when we become dangerous, and they don't want that. That's why, like, for instance, like the Second Amendment, there's so many of these people in positions of power here in America that are trying to erode that and erase that, so we don't have the means to fight back. Because quite honestly, man, uh, people will not go into those train cars willingly, if we are still armed, and they know that. That's one of the reasons why they want us disarmed, is because then it would be an easier way to shove us in those train cars. Uh, every socialized construct, so, 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 yeah, in some ways, I kind of agree, Sean. But for many generations, for many generations, they've figured out how to um, program the human mind, because it is the battle for the mind. That is what they want to control, is our mind. Because if you've got control of the mind, everything else follows. Everything else follows, and that's where it's at. Exactly. There will always be somebody wanting that. There was always somebody that's saying, "I will be a good master," or "I will be a good ruler," or a good leader. But they mean to be your master and your ruler. They mean to do that. You know. Um, and like that's why I said this earlier too, Bonnie. I was like, it's like the Jones Plantation, basically on a massive scale. It doesn't matter who the slave master is; you're still a slave to the master. It doesn't matter if you get to vote what slave master you have; you're still a slave. Um, and you're caught in that mentality where it's like, well, shit. Uh, Well, at least we get to vote who we want as a master. And if we leave this plantation, hell, the next plantation will be worse than this one. So that mentality is always keeping people into the plantation. They're always staying in the plantation because the fear of, going to another plantation will be worse, and blah 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 blah. And then the idea of the choices that we get, Lady Smith, what's going on? The choices that we get in the so-called leadership is really not a choice. because these are choices that are provided to you. They, you know, if the choices are provided to you, you don't really have a choice. And I realize I just repeated myself, but you know, I do that sometimes. Sometimes I repeat myself saying the exact same thing, just in different ways, because in my mind, um, people understand things and hear things differently, and if you reword it but saying the exact same thing, sometimes it's easier to understand. Um, but I am concerned that people will get their bubble burst, and then lose all hope whatsoever. Because I understand hope does keep people going in some way. I mean, to each their own. Some people absolutely need that faith. They need that hope. They need that belief to keep them waking up in the morning, you know. But my concern is that when the veil is lifted and they realize that everything that they believed, everything that they hoped for, everything that they had faith in was a lie, and then now they don't have that psychological aspect would destroy people. And that concerns me, because there are people out there, like I said, what's up, Navy vet? There are people out there that I think are good people, and I don't want to see them hurt. I don't want to see that, they get to that point where all that kept them getting up in the morning is all gone. And then what do they have left? Um, that's why, me personally, I don't subscribe to those type of scenarios. Me personally, I don't. And I don't rely on that. And that's not what keeps me up in the morning. Keeps me from getting, keeps me to, so I can get up in the morning and get out of bed. That doesn't pull me out of bed. Um, but for some people, that's what they need. And I don't know. That's the reason why, in some ways, and sometimes, I don't want to sound like an asshole to people sometimes, because um my some of the edges of my personality can be very sharp, and and I don't want to be the one to really burst their bubble. You know what I mean? There's a part of me that doesn't want to be that one. What's up, Garrett? I don't want to be that one to burst their bubble. I want them, really, in my mind, I want them to find it out on their own before they get to the point where their bubble is bursted. And I want them to open their eyes and see things for themselves. Um, it's like I've said this before. Um, I'm not here to change anybody's minds. I'm not here. That's not my job. It's not my responsibility to do that. That's not what my drive or my uh, ambition is, to change people's minds. You know, what I am going to do is just basically, I'll lead you to water. You're the one that has to drink it. If you don't, you don't. You do, you do. Whatever. I've done my part. I've led you to the water, or I've shown you the door. It's not me that has to walk through it. You're the one that has to walk through it. And that is your choice if you want to walk through it or you're not, but it's not, I don't care one way or the other. I mean, there are part of me that does, but it's not my place to open the door for you. That's not what I'm here for. I'm basically, I will throw the warning out there. take the red pill or the blue pill? No. Quite honestly, I mean, um, and I mean, and in some ways, there is times in my life where I feel like I'm more more black pilled, but even that is to me is not necessarily that's where I've been consumed by the doom and gloom, which I don't want to have that consuming me. But I'm more of a realist. Um, but um, and I like I said, I become concerned, for the people out there that I all you guys out here on YouTube that I've known for a long time and I've had conversations with and stuff like that. Because like I said, I mean, there's a lot of you people out there that I really think that you guys are good people and you're real. You know what I mean? Um, but there are aspects that I'm just concerned about. Because the world that we're living in is not necessarily on our side, and it hasn't been on our side for 3,000 years. uh, Probably longer than that, but I'm just using that as a roundabout number. Um, uh, the thing is like if people really think that something that has been in the works for 3,000 some odd years is really going to change in our lifetime or even in 4 fucking years, you're delusional. Um, but that's just me being straightforward, blunt, and sometimes an asshole. When I And I agree, some people's views on truth are different. Everybody has their own perspective because the truth that was shown to me is not necessarily the truth that was shown to everyone else. That's the reason why I'm not trying to force my ideals. I mean, my thoughts, my opinions, or anything like that on people. I don't want to force that on you. I'll just put it out there. And if it, like I said, it can go in one ear and out the other. I don't give a shit. It's not. I don't care. What I would like is at least. What's up, Growl? What I would like at least is it go in one ear and maybe rattle around in that noodle for a minute and think about it. Now, if it rattles around in that noodle and it goes out the other ear, that's fine. But if it rattles around in that noodle and sticks around for a minute and you're like, ooh, and you think about it more and more, whatever, that's also fine too, because that's what my objective is really to make people think. When people stop thinking and when people stop talking, that's when we have problems. Nothing changes. Came back to drop a like. Oh, thank you. Um, I'm not going to stay long. I've only got 50% on my battery life. What's up, Grim? So I won't be long on this stream anyway, unless I move away from the fire and go into the house and put the phone on charger. But other than that, I'm going to be sitting out here outside next to the fire. And talking of assholes, I welcome Sean all the time. Yeah, critical thinking is becoming a lost art. Like I said, I've said this earlier to Bonnie earlier. I get glimmers of hope out there. It's just not necessarily on a massive scale. There are those glimmers of hope on the younger generation of critical thinking. I just don't see it on a massive scale from my observation, and that's unfortunate. But that's also part of the plan, you know. I mean, that's part of the whole, like, the public school system and stuff, you know what I mean? You know, that was started and created by the Rockefellers and the Carnegie Foundation, and they weren't interested in have critical thinkers and questioning type of citizenry. They wanted obedient workers. That's the reason why they, you know, that's why that's in place. So it's been part of the plan to eliminate our individuality and our critical thought and all that stuff and questioning authority. It's been the plan from the beginning. So that's really, like, in this nation, you know, that's why I say, you know, this is nothing new. This has been going on. The infrastructure to this has been in place and in the minds of people for many generations in this country. And also, it started over in Europe and all that kind of stuff to begin with, you know. Um, and then it kind of infiltrated and occupied this nation. Um, so, you know, quite honestly, it's been going on, and the people that that had this yeah, yeah, exactly, Growl. I mean, you know, and that's another thing too. Uh, you know, if I was to use a passage out of the Art of War, um, um, if you do not, if you know yourself and your enemy, you will always be successful in battle. But if you do not know yourself or you do not know your enemy, well, let's say that, put it this way: if you do not know the enemy, you partially will be successful. But if you don't know yourself and your enemy, you'll never be successful. And that is one of the biggest problems, that, you know, some people might know who the enemy is, but they don't know themselves. Or they might know themselves, but they don't know who the enemy is. And that is, and then there's those people that don't even know themselves and don't know the enemy. Those are the, to me, those are the useful idiots. Those are the NPCs, in my opinion, on that level. But it really comes down to, people need to know themselves, know thyself. If you get that, you know thyself. You got to know yourself, and you also got to know the enemy. And and that will be the way we will be successful in combating this worldwide cabal that is trying to subjugate the entire population of the fucking planet. And the ones that put all the balls rolling, they knew they would not see the fruits of their labor because they'd be dead and gone. But they also were thinking hundreds of years into the future. Quite honestly, and I was saying this yesterday, it, most people, I'd say a lot of people, are stuck in the here and now, which, you know, in some aspects I understand, because I mean, you know, nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. So it's good to live every minute like it's your last. I understand that. And that is something to be thought about. But if you want future generations to flourish and grow in a more free type of a world, we've got to start thinking as a whole, hundreds of years into the future, knowing that the seeds that you plant today, you might not see the fruits of that labor, but your future generations will benefit from. And that's the mentality that we've got to get into. And that's the mentality that they don't want us to get into, because they know if we actually are aware and um, understand the power that we really have, we will defeat them. And they don't want that. And, and I said this to Bonnie earlier, it's like Grimm. I'll say this to you too. I mean, there are some things that I kind of agree with you on, but there are things that I kind of disagree with you on. And I know I'm not always agreeable, but that's the thing. I love the discussions because it opens up, our different perspectives and how we can find solutions. Because like I said, I've said this before, it's like the problems that we see right now in our lives, most of them are created by a third party in a sense. All right. And I think the problem is trying to fix the problem. Quite honestly, I see the solution to be is to eliminate what caused the problem in the first place. Once you eliminate what caused the problem, you don't have the problem to deal with because it doesn't exist. So, and some people can't grasp that. Um, and um, I've used the mental type of analogy so you can get like kind of a mental picture in your mind. Let's say you had a garden, all right? And next thing you know, you start noticing that you've got, I don't know, some kind of like, I don't know, some kind of disease starting in the garden, or like there's some kind of invasive species starting to destroy your garden. You the only way you can save your garden is to eliminate the what's causing the problem. I mean, you can't just go in there and take some of that out. You can't just take half of that what's causing the problem out of your garden and think that your garden's going to survive. No, what's left, like the disease or the invasive species or whatever, what's left, they will continue to rot your garden. So you have to eliminate what's causing the problem in the first place. I mean, completely. Like if it's like some kind of disease and it's moving from one plant to the next, well, you have to uproot the ones that are diseased from the roots and yank them out where there's none of that left. So the rest of your garden can survive and grow and flourish. It's kind of like if you were sitting there and you had like, I don't know, a bucket or a barrel full of apples, and one of those apples starts rotting away. The longer you let that apple sit in there, the more other apples become infected and start rotting right there with it. So you have to eliminate that rotten apple. Blackwatch, Ladysmith, what's going on? And you have to eliminate that rot. I don't know. And that's why I was going to the aspect of this belief, faith, hope, all that kind of shit. Oh yeah, you can believe that your apples will be just fine. It's only one rotten apple. I believe that everything else will be fine. Or I have hope. I have faith that things will be better. You know, but if you just leave that apple in there, or you don't do anything about it because you think that, oh, God Almighty is gonna keep my apples from rotting away, when that rotten apple is still in the bucket with the rest of them. Next thing you know, that whole bucket becomes rotten. And then where's your hope and then your faith and um your belief? Where is that? Where's that at now? No one's coming to save us. No one. Not Trump, not even Jesus. And I know that's hard for some people to hear. We, the people of this fucking planet, are the ones we are waiting for. Okay. If you want to go on the biblical sense, God gave us free will and expects us to use it. doesn't expect us to sit here and wait around for somebody to come save them. Expects us to use it. So uh, we are the ones we are waiting for, not some savior, be it a president or some supernatural being. Okay. We've got to get down to reality. Yes, you can have your religious beliefs and stuff like that, but quite honestly, man, you got to live your life. What happens after you die happens. You got no control over that. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, that might be hard for some people to hear, because like I said, I mean, I can be, quite um, blunt sometimes, and um, some of my words can cut people's, you know, cut people deeply. But I don't know. And like I said, I know I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to have all the answers. I don't claim to be your fucking leader either. And I don't want to be your fucking leader. I don't want to, and I don't claim to be a saint. I don't claim to be, perfect or whatever. All this is shit. I know damn well I'm not, you know. Hell, I mean, I'm in a position in my life right now where I wish I had, it was better, but and quite honestly, if I tried a little harder on certain aspects, things could be better. But I'm unfortunately, I'm a professional procrastinator. I'm not necessarily lazy. I procrastinate a lot. So I mean, I'm not, I'm not, I'm not anyone really. I'm not even somebody to look up to. You know what I mean? Um, I've said this to my sister and stuff like that when it comes down to her kids and stuff. I'm like, you know, uh, I mean, there might be times that I might be, you know, the uncle that could, you know, maybe teach my nephew something or something like that. But I'm not a role model. I'm not, I'm not somebody to look up to. You know, uh, but I mean, there are things that I can show my nephew. Like for instance, like when I get to visit with him and whatever, and we have some time together, I can show him how to shoot a BB gun, and how to do that safety and all that stuff. How to go fishing, maybe even how make a fire, how to set up a tent. These are things that I can show, and skills and things that I can, that could, it's something that he can benefit from for the rest of his life. And then on top of that, I'm creating memories for my nephew when I do that. But I am not a role model. I'm not that one to look up to. And I don't claim to be. And I'm not going to be that for you guys out there either. That's just not who I am. And I agree, it does it shows skills in teaching confidence and you know um builds character and all that shit. It's like I don't coddle to all this, like, protecting, people, kids from the world and stuff like that. Because I mean, they need to be shown the reality, something that they can, they'll be prepared for the world that is not nice. And I think that's another thing too. Um, I know adults that are still in this naivete type of a mentality, almost like a child that looks at the world like it's rainbows and bubble wrap and fucking unicorns, and that's just not reality. And when reality comes knocking on their fucking door and their bubble gets bursted, you know, I I don't want to use the word fear, but I fear in a way, I want to use it anyway, but I fear um, what will happen to those good people out there that their whole idea of what how things are gets shattered. You can protect you the way I see how you can protect them, Lady Smith, is by making them preparing them for those grim creepers out there, because that is a reality. You know, because if they're sheltered to the point where they don't know anything about it, or you know, if they're sheltered to the point where um, you know they you know where they're they're in their mind that the world is this rainbows and bubble wrap and unicorns and shit like that, that doesn't prepare them for those type of things. And then when they're confronted with those type of things, they won't know how to deal with it and how to combat that and how to defend themselves from that. So I don't see that as a good thing. No. I was wondering if you were going to catch that. I don't think she was, Grim. But you know what you know, um, I don't, you know, and that's another thing too. Um, I don't, I don't coddle to that kind of shit. I think kids need to be uh, um, taught that the world is not that, and how to to defend themselves from that. I mean, you know, there's a lot of things in my life when I was growing up. I didn't have somebody to teach me these things. You know, there's a few things that I learned from my dad, but the only problem is my dad is ex-military, ex-cop, so a lot of that mentality was forced down my throat when I was growing up, and that's that status type of a brainwashed type of fucking mentality, and so I had to. Um, Learn a lot of this stuff on my own. And so I didn't have that mentor. Um, and that's another thing too. A lot of kids nowadays don't have really good role models or mentors. And that's that I think right there, and to me is is a dying art. But we as a people, especially you know the older generation. I mean, well, closer to um, especially if you're a parent, all that stuff, you're going to have to step in. You cannot be your child's friend. You have to be their parents. But you can be a role model. You can be a mentor. Um, and then you know, even if it's not your own children, you know, like my nephew and nieces and stuff like that. I mean, you know, like I'm not necessarily that mentor or role model. I mean, there are things, you know, that I can, you know, show certain things, like I said, skills and stuff like that, you know, to to help them grow in their life. You know, I'm not even all that great of a gardener. You know what I mean? There are certain things that I just can't grow with the shit. You know what I mean? So I'm not I don't really have, you know, sometimes I don't have the best green thumb when it comes down to that. So I'm not that person when it comes down to children. I'm not the one I don't have that green thumb. You know what I mean? But there are times, man, there are certain things like there are certain types of things that I can grow very well. And a lot of times those things don't need a lot of help. You know what I mean? They do just fine on their own. You know what I mean? And every once in a while they just need a little water, and every once in a while just need a little looking after, a little bit of trimming. That's about it. Otherwise, they're good. But the ones that need that, the types of plants or even people that need that constant um, looking after, that's not necessarily my wheelhouse. But there are people out there that have that ability, that are good at that kind of thing. And those are we need to, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Shit, you know, um, crap, I don't know. There's a word I'm looking for when it comes out, I don't know. I don't know, propagate, not, produce, I don't know, something. I can't remember what I'm trying to think of. It's you gotta, you know, um, harness that energy in people and stuff and like that. I don't know. Like I said, I don't have all the answers. And I know that this is the long con. This is the long game. Um, I can plant some seeds right now, and I know I will not see the fruits of my labor in my lifetime. If I'm lucky and, nothing traumatic happens. If I'm lucky, I got 20, 25 years left. Average, people live into about 70, 75. That's where a lot of my family so far, they end up passing away around 75. You know, it's rare that I get, it's not a common thing for people to live that much longer and stuff. I don't know. But, let's say, just for shits and giggles, you know, I've got 25 years left. It's not very long, y'all. And that's just if nothing else goes wrong, you know what I'm saying? I'll be lucky to see that, I'll be lucky to get past 25 years from now. But like I said, if there are certain plants, there are certain trees and stuff like that. If I was to plant a tree right now, like a pine tree or an oak tree or something like that, started at seed right now, I will not see that tree fully grown in my lifetime, you know. But my future generations will benefit from that. We've got to start thinking on the long term scenario because the communist evil side or the evil side, let's just go good and evil. The evil side are looking hundreds of years into the future. And they've been doing that for 3,000, 4,000 some odd years now. All right. We've got to change our own as a people worldwide, not just here in America. We've got to change our own. We've got to, we've got to pull that operating system that's in us now out and put a new operating system in because the operating system that we have in right now is uh, the slavery mentality, the domesticated animal mentality. That right there is the operating system that's in place. And we've got to yank that out and replace it with a new one, a better one. If I was to relate it to like a computer terms, hold on, let me fuck around and I'm really glad you guys popped in. I wasn't expecting it, because like I said, I was over on another stream that had shut down, and we were sitting backstage, and we were talking about some things. And when they shut down, I had some stuff running around in my mind, and like I said, I mean, I've got 40% left on my battery life. So I didn't think it was going to be. I wasn't going to sit here for very long, but I at least wanted to get some of this stuff off of my mind anyway, and share it with y'all. And Grim, I agree. That's the thing too. So I've said this earlier also. Um, it's the death of a thousand cuts. If we continue, and that's really their plan. They cannot. The evil ones, the powers that should not be. Um, they they know they cannot cold turkey us. They know they cannot just basically put shut everything down or whatever, all that stuff, and just basically do it all at one time. They know they can't do that because um, uh, too many people would revolt. So they had this slow simmer, and erode away our freedom, erode away our rights, little by little, little by little, little by little. So by the time our grandchildren are our age right now, they will not have any rights left. All their freedoms are gone, and they are nothing but subjects to the powers that should not be. Where, because I mean, seriously, I mean, even now as it stands, the system that's in place, you're basically born, and then you are put into a contract with this fucking system, and you are in debt from the time you were born until the time you are dead. And even after you die, they still take more from you. You know, they say this is the uh, land of the free, home of the brave. No, we are in the land of the fee and home of the slave. Because quite honestly, with the 13th Amendment and all that other shit, um, uh, they've made all of us slaves. They never eradicated slavery. We're just on a massive scale plantation, you know, open air prison. And until all of us ants decide to take out those grasshoppers are going to continue to rule over the ants. But we ants outnumber them, and we can actually, if we get on the same page and singing the same song, they don't have a chance. So, and we have to be looking, and we have to be um, vibrating and modulating the frequency of freedom as a people worldwide, not just in America, worldwide. Freedom is the jewel that they don't want us to have. And if it's so important for them to take it away from us, it should be important for us to keep it. You know, hold on. I was reading a Well, that's the thing. It's like if that tiger growl when you're sitting there, if that tiger was born in that cage, it would never know that it was in captivity. Now, if it was once wild and you put it in that cage, it knows it's in captivity. And that's the problem. We were born in this cage. Most people don't understand that we're in captivity because they're born into it. Well, the thing is, Grim, um, we're not put on this earth to sit here and just work our entire lives so the elite or whatever you want to call them can live fat, happy lives. And we're just, and then we're supposed to just work all our lives and pay taxes and die. That's not what we're put on this earth for. I don't give a shit what country we're in. The only thing is, here in America, um, we're supposed to have these things, but it's been um, hijacked long time ago. Um, until people worldwide starts to realize that these psychopaths that think that they have the right to rule over others is just illegitimate. These fuckers don't have this right. Um, we have the right to be free no matter where we live. And we've got to stand against this stuff because I'm going to tell you something, man. There's always been, for thousands of years, there's always been someone out there that thinks that they have the right to rule over others, and everyone else has the obligation to obey. And that mentality has been forced onto us all our lives for thousands of years. That's the reason why so many people um, don't know that they are in captivity. And so many people embrace the captivity. There's a lot of people out there that want to stay in the matrix because it's comfortable, it's predictable, it's convenient, it's profitable. So they don't want the matrix to go away. But when they start seeing that one free person out there doing freedom things, they're like, that, that person out there, that's dangerous. You got to be in captivity in this cage with the rest of us. That's what I'm saying, Grim. It's the reason why I'm saying that. And it has to come from the people. Like I said, I'm not your fucking leader. I'm not your fucking, your role model. But I'll show you the door, and you have to make the decision to walk through that door yourself. I'll lead you to the water, but that's as far as I go. You're the one that has to drink it, not me. I've already done that shit. I've already made the decision to walk through the door. I've already made the decision to drink the water. Now I can show you where that stream is. Now I can show you the door. I can do that because I've been through there. I've done it, or I've experienced it for myself. And I've already had my eyes open. And I've had my eyes open for a long time. You know. But, we're all connected one way or the other just because, we're all of this human species. Just because we live in different countries and they've got this imaginary line drawn on a map doesn't make us better or worse than everyone else. We're all still humans. And these psychopaths that think they can rule over us and be our masters and all that shit, those are the ones that that are the aggressors. Those are the ones that create the problems. And also the ones that want to stay in that captivity, the ones that are willing to comply, and the ones that are willing to enforce those psychopaths' will. Crabs in a bucket. Yeah, for sure. That's another good analogy right there, too, Growl. It's another good analogy right there. If people would stop dragging you back down into the bucket, eventually some of those crabs would get out of that damn bucket and live free again. But unfortunately, there's too many of those damn crabs that are trying to get out at the same time, dragging everybody down with them. That's the operating system. That's the mentality I'm talking about. Now, if they would do the opposite, and instead of dragging everybody down, helped each other up, you know, if like one got up and the other one got, crawled up from there and then got up on the top of that bucket and then started hoisting other crabs up. Next thing you know, the whole goddamn bucket of crabs are outside, wandering around, getting back into the water. And that's the thing, too. Instead of dragging everybody back down, we've got to start helping people up. Got to eliminate this fucking operating system that's been programmed into us for generations. I mean, many generations. That's why I'm saying I'm using a big number, like thousands of years of this shit. This is my seed that I'm trying to plant. I wonder if this internet shit survives 200 years from now. I wonder what the people 200 years from now would think of us and the videos that we're producing today. I wonder what their opinion of us will be. No, I don't get mad at them, Growl. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated because it seems like I'm banging my head against the wall sometimes. Well, actually, a lot, you know, because like I said, I've been trying to talk to people for 30 years. And I get it, and I get when it comes down to um, people just trying to live their lives. I get it, they want a roof over their head, they want food on the table, you know, they want their children to be happy. You can't guarantee their safety. You want them to be safe, but you can't guarantee that because the world that we live in is not safe. And to think that you can guarantee their safety or, protect them from the world around us. You're delusional. You can prepare them for the world around us. You can't protect them from it. You can't keep them from it unless you keep them locked up in your house for the fucking rest of their lives. But I get it. It's like I mean, I don't have children, which I did that on purpose, but I've got my dogs, and I my dogs right now. I mean, I've been there ever since they were born. I saw them getting pushed out of their mother, and I was right there when it happened. And they're like my children, but I want them to be safe. And I know there's snakes out here in the goddamn, out in there in the woods and stuff that would kill them if they bit them in the right place or whatever, and they didn't get attention and all that stuff. So I know this world that we're living in is not safe. I can't keep them from, that, wandering around out here and stuff like that, but I can prepare them for that scenario. Or like if that scenario came out, I can, um, you know, get them to where they understand the dangers that a snake can do, you know. But they also have that instinct that because they're tame in a way, but I don't they have their own mind. They do what they want to do. You know what I mean? Um, you know, but I'm kind of like they're a parent to them also. So, they want me to be happy. They don't want me being mad at them, you know. Whatever. I I digress on that shit. It's kind of hard to sit there and, compare my dogs to a child, but, still on the same kind of um philosophy type of scenario. I can't always protect my dogs from the world that's around them. I can only prepare them for it. Yeah, and you're right, Lady Smith. I mean, um, I I kind of agree with that too. And I mean, you're not off base on that. So, that's what drives me nuts so much. It's like, when it comes down to the damn participation trophies, I think the damn participation trophies and all that other bullshit is detrimental to people, to the kids. I mean, I mean, or I mean, because I mean, honestly, I mean, it drives me nuts when I see a child acting up in a fucking store somewhere and their mother is just standing there and just letting it happen. And I mean, back in when I was a kid, you know, um, my grandmother would have gone over there and spanked that fucking kid for her and put that kid right. You know what I'm saying? It's like some kids, they kind of do need a smacking. Because I mean, just letting them. I mean, I start looking at like, what kind of a fucking, like I see, like, I was sitting there watching these, some of the live streams of some people I follow when, they were going out to like, with the Antifa fucking protests or the jackasses that are protesting the fucking ICE agents and all that stuff. I start thinking about these kids because a lot of them are younger than me for sure. I mean, they're probably half my age or more. And I start thinking about who are these fucking parents that raise these kids? probably never been um, you know, disciplined in their life. I mean, spanking your kids and discipline is two different things, in my opinion. I mean, my dad kind of went overboard on the spanking scenario on some aspects, but there is a discipline aspect too. Um, but you know, like I said, um, I don't think a lot of these kids nowadays are getting any of that, and that's why they turn out the way they are. $1 million question. The state raised them. Yeah, well, that is true. That's part of it, and that's done on by design also. That's done by fucking design right there. It's a designed obsolescence. And that's true too, Lady Smith. I agree with there because my dad, he would get angry and that discipline went a little bit overboard. You know what I mean? It did not sit well with me when I was growing up. Um, which is interesting too, man. My dad's been he died like up almost 2 years ago. And recently, in the past couple of months, I've had dreams where he'd pop up in. And I've never had a dream where my dad popped up in my dreams. This is interesting too. I mean, like in the past, I think it's probably about the past month, he's popped up twice in my dreams. And it was mostly like, like the first one, um, he was helping me fix a lawnmower or something like that. And he wasn't an old man, like, an older man, like when he passed away, he was a younger man. When he looked younger in my dream anyway. And the other one was it 2 nights ago? Um, he popped up in my dream, and I have a view on what dreams are, and I remember in my dream I realized I was in that state while I was in that state, and I remember you know pulling my dad aside. I was like, come here, I got something to tell you, that kind of thing. And while I was saying that, I can feel the emotions start welling up, like I was about to cry, kind of thing, because there were some things that I really wanted to say to him. And I was like, Dad, man, I gotta tell you something, man. Come over here. I wanna, can you know, want to tell you this, get you over here, privately, and I want to say this stuff to him. And he can see it in my face that it was something that was really tugging at me emotionally, because I wanted to, I wanted to tell him some things that I wasn't able to tell him before he died, kind of thing. And I remember thinking in my mind in the dream, like I was thinking this, and it's like I want to tell him that that you know where I come from, you have already passed away, and I wanted to tell you these things, and da 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 da. Da. That's something I was thinking in my head at the time in my dream, and I just couldn't just blatantly say out like I'm from another universe, or I'm from the future or some shit like that. I didn't want to like sound like that when to say that to him. So I was kind of holding that back, kind of thing. And I just wanted to pull him off to the side and tell him I love him and that kind of thing. One of those things. And And it's a very possible reality that I really was talking to him. See, I look at dreams, especially the very vivid ones that I've had or through my life, that I am traveling. Um, I start thinking about the quantum entanglement type of thing and the multiverse scenario, which I see it as a reality. And there's many versions of me that are existing simultaneously right now. And the way I look at things in my dreams, I'm actually traveling around and looking through the eyes of that other me in that other universe for that moment. And so the dream that I had the other night with my dad, in that universe, my dad hasn't passed away yet. And I knew at that moment that that's where I was at in my dream. It was like a conscious um, realization in that moment. I knew I was not awake in this universe, in this realm. I was asleep and I was dreaming and I was in that other universe experiencing that. So I was feeling at that moment, while I had the chance, while he was still alive, which he is, those other universes, he's not passed away yet. And then, so I felt like at that moment, I was like, well, shit, I have this chance to tell him things that I didn't get to tell him in this universe before he passed away. That's the reason why I I say these things on, we will not really see the fruits of our own labor. Um, we don't live long enough. Nobody's guaranteed tomorrow. I mean, like I said, I may, if nothing happens and everything, goes okay and all that stuff. I've got probably a couple, maybe about 20 more, 25 more years or something shit like that. Maybe I'll be lucky if I see more than 25 years more or something like that. But like I said, no one is guaranteed tomorrow, and anybody can die at any time. So the seeds that we're planting today is important for the future. And just because we will not see the fruits of our labor in our lifetime doesn't make it less important. I'm sorry. I kind of, like I said, I was talking to some other people earlier and things were running around in my head and I wasn't able to, because she went ahead and shut the stream down, or actually we were backstage talking and stuff like that. And everybody was getting tired and they were like, well, we're going to go ahead and shut this thing down. And I was still rolling around in my mind. So that's the reason why I decided to pop this little random stream up. And a lot of you guys, I mean, good. Hey, Nana, what's up? Um, a lot of you guys, there's quite a few of you I've known for a long time through YouTube. I mean, I've been on YouTube this year. I think I first got on YouTube around 2014. I've had it, the channel Anarchy Television since about 2016 or something like that. So I've been around YouTube for a while. Um, so there's a few of you out there that I've known for many years now. And I've grown fond of some, of you guys. And I'm also at that age. I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while now. Anyway, but I'm 50 years old. All right. Well, actually, I'll be 51 next month. Matter of fact. Um, but I think about what is my legacy? What what am I leaving behind for future generations? And because like for instance, if I was to pass away tomorrow, what am I leaving behind as my legacy? Quite honestly, I've got a shitload of junk around my house that somebody else is going to have to deal with. Is that my legacy? I don't have any children. I don't have a wife. You know what I mean? So I don't have that. So maybe it's just the connections and the conversations that I have with you guys or people I know personally, face to face type of things. Because I got very few friends. I mean, I've got a lot of acquaintances, but I've got a handful. I've got very few people that I would call friends, but this might be my legacy, especially if the internet stays around for a while. Like I said, I mean, I wonder what people 200 years from now watching my videos will think, if it's still around. Maybe that might be my legacy. Maybe those will be the fruits that I from the seed that I planted today, 200 years from now, the fruits of my labor, somebody will get something from it. Who knows? Maybe that is my legacy that I leave behind. I don't know. 52, no wife, no kids. Yeah. Now, Huckleberry, I've kind of done that on purpose for my life. I've never been married. I've actually had three ex-girlfriends ask me them to marry them. Um, but it's not like I didn't want to marry them, but I just never wanted to get married. You know, I mean, I probably, they say that there's that one for everyone. Um, I might have kicked that girl to the curb a long time ago. um, but but I have issues. I've got baggage. Um, there's a few things that's happened through my life that's really uh, fucked me up on certain aspects. So I can't really do that. Um, I have yet to find the woman that that completes me. Put it that way. I've yet to find that. I mean, and if I did, I didn't realize it at the time, and I sabotaged it. There's a good possibility of that too, but I don't. No, and I understand that, Lady Smith. And I mean, um, I've seen well, I'll put it this way, man. If I wanna find the woman of my dreams, I'm probably gonna have to move. Cause I mean, the women around here suck ass. The women around my area where I live right now, they suck. Uh, so, I mean, it's quite possible I'll have to move, to find the woman of my dreams. Who knows? Or I don't know. Maybe I'll never do that. Maybe that'll never happen. I've given up. I've said, "Fuck it. I don't care anymore." You know? I stopped looking a long time ago, but, you know, if it's meant to be, our paths will cross. But I'm like I said, I'll be 51 pretty soon, and, you know, I'm more of a granddad type of an age right now, so, I mean, even if I did find that woman right now, to have a child right now, I'd be, like, in my 70s, and 80s and stuff like that by the time they turn teenagers. It's not necessarily something I want either. I've waited way too long to have children right now, put it that way. Nah, I hear you, Lady Smith. It is, and it kinda sucks too, you know, when it comes down to that. It really does it kinda sucks. Um, the way the culture has moved, um, it drives me nuts. I cannot stand some things about the internet when it comes down to it. I mean, I really do not understand why so many young females feel like they have to prostitute themselves out here on social networks and shit, and it just drives me nuts. These are beautiful girls, but they're sitting there just basically prostituting themselves out here, uh, on the internet. And I find that just disgusting, in my opinion. But I'm a guy. There are parts of me that's just like, you know, I like looking at beautiful girls. You know, I you know, but it just, especially when they're starting, I mean, I start seeing fucking teenagers getting out here on these social networks, sitting there just showing their ass off, and I'm like, I start wondering, I was like, are you going to be proud of yourself when you get my age and look back at the videos that you're putting out right now? Are you going to be proud of yourself? I'm actually kind of glad I'm an X generation, man. It's like a lot of the shit that I did when I was a kid never made it on the internet because the internet didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there might be some Polaroids and some VHS tapes floating around somewhere, but it's not made it on the internet. And it's not immortalized forever and everybody can see it, all that shit, which I feel lucky on that end of it. Well, I'm glad that I grew up in the generation that I fucking grew up in. But I do I'm concerned about our future ahead of us and our future generations. I'm definitely not a boomer. I'm X generation, goddamn it, motherfucker. Fuck up. Fuck my dad's generation is a fucking boomers. So I'm kind of wondering on speaking of when I'm sitting here thinking about my dad again. So I'm kind of wondering, why is my dad popping up in my dreams recently? I'm curious because I have asked the universe. I'm like, I do try to talk or try to ask guidance from my ancestors, the people that came before me that are dead and gone now. I do ask for guidance from them because I mean, obviously they're dead and gone, and I'm sure they're being privy to more of the truth and knowledge that once they passed on that I don't have. And 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 I'm wondering if that's part of what could be at play right there. Maybe my dad is actually trying to communicate, through that. I don't know. And there's also, like I said, there is that um, possibility. I was just really in seeing through the eyes of that other me, that other version of myself in another universe somewhere. And in that universe, my dad hasn't passed away yet. And and it was my way to say some of the things that I wasn't able to say before he passed away. And also, it might be his way of communicating to me some of the things that he wasn't able to say before he passed away. And I agree. Now, there is a reason. There's got to be, because I've never had any dreams of my dad before, never in my life. And for some reason, in the past few weeks or this month, basically, he's popped up twice. And I'm very aware of my dreams. I am aware of what's going on. I'm majority of the time I'm aware that I'm in that dream state. I know I'm not awake in this realm. I know I'm sleeping in my bed and I'm in that moment because I see it like I'm traveling. That's the way I look at it. Teresa, the entanglement proves. Well, like I said, it's like, you got the quantum entanglement scenario. It's like, all these the multiverse, um, it's all existing. It's like, there is many versions of of us all simultaneously happening at the same time. I mean, there's probably a version of me where I'm, you know, I don't know. There's a version of me in some parallel universe where I'm a truck driver. There's a version of me in a parallel universe where I'm you know I'm just I'm running away from monsters. There's a version of me in another universe, parallel universe, simultaneously right now, um, going to a fucking uh, uh, a gathering of a bunch of hippies out in the woods with a lot of really crazy music, and I'm there with my mom. You know, um, there's a version of me in another parallel universe where uh, I'm just I'm looking for my van. Because I know it was parked right here, but it's now gone, Exactly, girl. And you can come up to a fork in the road. In one version of yourself, you take a left. In the other version of yourself, you took a right. The other version of yourself, you didn't even choose either one of those. You just turn back around and go back the way you came. You know, it all exists at the same moment, at the same time, simultaneously. Whatever can and will happen has already happened. I look at time that way too. Time is not linear. It's all existing at the exact same moment. The here and now, past, present, and future all exist at the same moment. I'm not one of those. I don't really subscribe to religions. You know, I tend to um, gravitate to much older ways of thought uh, than Christianity and Judaism and Catholicism or Muslim. The stuff that I gravitate to are much, much, much older than that. And so I have a different perspective than a lot of people. Like I said, I know this to be true that my point of view, my perspective is not the popular um, way of looking at things. Hold on, let me fuck around with this fire for a second. How does religion coincide with timelessness? Well, um, let me see how I can answer that. And like I said, I don't have all the answers, but um, the way I see, no, the truth that's been shown to me is that the creator is the union between Mother Nature and Father Time. And the creator is what gave birth to all creation. All right. And this can be observed, everywhere. Um, and I'm not sure if that actually answered it. I'm not sure if that answers your question, then. I'm not sure. Um, um, to me, personally, the way that the truth that's been shown to me, put it that way. And hey, everybody's got their own idea of truth and what truth is different for everyone, I guess, in some ways, I guess. But the truth that was shown to me, um, religion, God, or whatever you want to call it, you know, does not write fucking books. Um, Men do, and men could be corrupted. Um, but like I said, the truth is that's the truth that I've been shown. Um, but like I said, my perspective and the way I look at things is not necessarily the popular um, viewpoint. And like I said, my viewpoint, my aspect, and my is native. What's going on? It's not necessarily. It's much older than the established um, religions of today. Um, the way I've looked at things has been pushed out centuries ago and forced into hiding um, by the established type of stuff of today, for instance, that's been going on for about 2 or 3 thousand years. But I feel more connected to that than I do anything else. I don't subscribe to the idea of belief. I don't subscribe to the idea of faith. I don't subscribe to the idea of hope. These are empty um, concepts in my mind. But like I said earlier, um, to each their own. Some people need that. Some people need that belief. Some people need that faith. Some people need that hope just to get up in the morning, get out of bed. Some people need that. And that's what I was saying earlier in the beginning of my stream that I I am concerned about. In this world that we're living in, and a lot of it is held up and supported by lies. Um, you may have belief in certain things or faith and hope in certain things. And what I'm concerned about is when that bubble gets bursted or that type of shit gets shattered, the type of psychological crap that would happen to people um, would be devastating. And I'm concerned about that. I mean, because like I said, it's like people will think that somebody's going to come save them. And be it fucking Trump, be it fucking Jesus or whatever. They all think that there's something going to come save them, and that's a lie. Nobody's coming to save us. And so many people put their faith, hope, and belief, like for instance, in Trump, for instance, when that bubble gets bursted, I am concerned of the psychological effect that will happen from that happening. You know, oh, like, we'll just wait and see, kind of a type of attitude. We'll just wait and see. Well, okay, let's say he sticks around and he does his 4 years, for instance, and then at the end of that 4 years, everything has gotten worse, or it has gotten no better, or anything like that. What then? Your hope, your faith, your belief was all bullshit. And it was all being shattered right there because y'all just waited around and had all this stuff. I mean, quite honestly, man, there's been millions of people through history that believe that Jesus is coming back, and they're all dead. And some of them died gruesome deaths, believing that Jesus will come back and save them. You know, life is very precious. You shouldn't be concerned about what happens to you after you die. You should be more concerned about what happens to you while you're alive, because this is a very precious thing that we've got, that we're here. This is, if lack of better words, if you want to go into the religious aspect, this is a fucking miracle that we're sitting here. So don't concern yourself with what happens to after you die. You should just be living the best life that you can and being um, good to yourself, good to the people around you, and spread that. Um, some people take it on the more uh, evil side of it. You know what I mean? Um, and I don't rely on them getting punished after they die. Quite honestly, those evil people need to be punished greatly before they fucking die. I want them to suffer before they die. The evil of this fucking planet must suffer while they're alive. I'm not going to count on them getting punished after they die. That's how I see it. And there's a lot of people on this fucking planet that are complete fucking psychopaths and evil. And they seem to have, you know, everything provided to them off of our backs. Yeah. I'm not going to rely on some supernatural being after they die to punish them. I'm not. That's just not how it works in my world. Their soul will go on to another, that spark inside of us, that will go on to another universe and continue on. And their body, that vessel that they that held that spark, will just be rotting in the ground or cremated. That spark is eternal. It'll go back to the creator, to the source, recycled and put back out into the universe, born again. It's been doing that for a millennia. You know, I mean, it's been happening for many millennia, actually, to be honest. And it will continue to do that. And that's where the time comes into play. Whatever can and will happen has already happened. There's nothing new under the sun. It'll be on this universe or the next. You know, like I said, I know my view on things are not necessarily the popular belief or the popular scenario, but and this is how I see things, and I'm not expecting any of y'all to see my way. I'm not expecting to change anybody's mind. I'm not sitting here trying to convince you of anything. I'm just stating my perspective. And I get it. Everybody has got, everybody needs different things. That's why I say, it's like some people, they need that to hold on to that belief because that gets them up in the morning, gets them out of bed. Well, I mean, hey, that's good. Whatever floats your boat, really, as long as it stays on the positive scenario. I mean, and I'm not going to downgrade anybody else's stuff out there. I mean, I've I've looked into many different beliefs, many types of different religions, many types of ways of thought, ways of life. I've looked into many different things in my time so far, and it's the reason why I see things the way I see things. Is um, I see good aspects of a lot of different things. All right, I kind of look at that type of the idea of religion, which you know I don't like using that term, but the idea of religion, I kind of look at it like I kind of relate it to, or like, okay, you guys know who Bruce Lee is, right? Well, why, how he got so good at Kung Fu is he learned many, many styles of Kung Fu. All right. And what he did was take the best parts of each one of those different styles of Kung Fu and created his own called Jeet Kune Do. I kind of look at on that philosophical religious aspect in the same way. I look at all of it. Some of them got some good points, some good moral sense, good, different things. I take the best parts of each of them, and I've created my own, in a sense, not necessarily created my own, but I've also it all ends up kind of gravitating back to the past, back to ancient um, ways of life and ways of thought and stuff like that 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 predate what we see today. Because a lot of those things gathered their knowledge from those things in the past that came before it. So I cut out the middleman. I go straight to the source. Um, so it's not necessarily me making up my own style or my own thing. I tend to just cut through the bullshit and go straight to the source, which came in ancient times before what we see today, that has been going on for a few thousand years. Because what I look into is maybe closer to 30 or 40 or 50,000 years back. Probably even farther than that, but still. And trying to stay in connection with that. And like I said, the source to me is the creator, and that's the union between Mother Nature and Father Time, and that's what gave birth to everything. There might have been some manipulation because I mean, there's quite possibly life from other places, like other planets and other universes, that has manipulated things on this planet also. But there was always something here before that came. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, if I was to go into some crazy talk, if the fallen ones, the angels and the Nephilim or all that stuff is not from this earth or not of this earth, they're aliens from somewhere else. We just call them gods and angels and demons. They're just technically, lack of better words, they're aliens from somewhere else. They're not of this place, of this planet. But there was life here before they got here. There's a lot of knowledge that we have all forgotten. And I think that was done by design, is to keep us from our wild state and tamed into a domesticated animal so we can be controlled and programmed and all this other shit. That's why I say, like, especially modern day, in the past few thousand years of religions, it is nothing but slavery for the mind. Like I said, there are some good points in some of it, but as a whole, it's not necessarily conducive um, to the source. But like I said, my view on things is not necessarily popular. You guys, I appreciate all you guys coming in and hanging out for me. Um, in about 2 minutes, that'll come up on 2 hours, and I'm down to like 24% on my battery life. My fire's about to die out on me. So in a couple of minutes, I'm gonna go ahead and shut this thing down and give you, oh my gosh, man, I wish my camera can pick that up. I see another one of those lights out there in the sky right now. One of those little dots up in the sky just going across the sky. God damn it. I wish my camera on StreamYard let me get that, but it can't get it. What the fuck are those things, man? I just don't know what those things are. It's not a satellite. It's not a fucking airplane. It's not a drone. I can tell you what it's not, but I can't tell you what it is. It looks like it's like about the size of a star. When you look up at the sky and you see that little dot up in the sky and it's a star just sitting there stationary, it looks like that, but going across the sky at a constant speed at a really fucking high elevation. I don't know what they are. There's one going right now. That's what I like sitting out here. I mean, I don't really have a lot of light pollution, so I can see the stars on a clear night really good out here. I really do enjoy that, but it's really interesting too, because I didn't really see them all that much in the past, but in the past year or so, I've been seeing more and more of these things, man. I don't know what the hell they are. It's like I said, it's not like a satellite or it's not like fucking Starlink or some shit like that. And it's not an airplane or anything like that because it doesn't have any blinking lights. It's just solid white light going pretty damn fast across the sky. And whatever it is really high up there, really high elevations. whatever it is. Probably spirits. Hey, Teresa. Well, I don't know. Like I said, I don't mind doing them either, man. If I'm up and I've got, and it's getting down to the weather is really nice. It's not too warm out here. It's actually kind of cool. And if I can keep the fire going and stuff like that, I don't mind doing these little fireside chat type of things and stuff. And it's interesting to see how many people show up because I mean, you know, 3, 4 o'clock in the freaking morning. It's just here where I'm at. I don't expect anybody to show up. So, I mean, it's just awesome people do. So, I mean, I might do more, honestly. I mean, and I'm not the type of guy, and I've never been the type of guy to make um, like a schedule, like where I'll come out like every Wednesday or, something like that. To me, it just starts feeling like a fucking job. So, um, it's more my style to just do these random spur of the moment type of things. And so, that's just how I am. That's probably why I don't get very many people on my live streams. I mean, I'll be lucky if I get 10 or 15 people on my live streams, you know what I mean? If I made it more regular, more consistent, I could probably get more people out here, but I do notice that I get a lot of people watching the replay though, which is kind of cool. I get more people watching the replay than I do the actual live stream itself. So, I really enjoy seeing you guys in the chat. I think it's awesome. But it is now 4 minutes after it's 2 hours and 4 minutes. And like I said, my fire is burning out. My battery's about to die on me. I will catch you guys on the flip side. And you guys have a good morning out there. Be good or be good at it. This is the 1122 Wingnut Radio out here for Anarchy Television. I'm back out, y'all.